We are set today for a initial permanency hearing, and the court will recognize that the department is present, represented today by Ms. Leslie Levi, joined by Ms. Bernice Hernandez and Mr. Jerome Ramirez. In addition, Ms. Kathleen Savage is here on behalf of Richard Saldivar as the attorney for the respondent mother in the case. Ms. Sherry Daniels, I don't believe I see her on, oh no, there she is, but she doesn't have her video going. So if it's possible to do that, that helps me. There we go. There's Ms. Daniels. All right, and then in addition, Ms. Jennifer Janis is here as the attorney for the respondent father, Benjamin Ramos. I don't believe he is present. Ms. Irene Acosta is here as the attorney and guardian ad litem for the children. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Ms. Levi, you may
proceed. How are you connected with this case?
I am the caseworker, the permanency specialist on this case.
And where are these two children currently placed?
The children are currently placed with maternal grandmother.
How are they doing in this placement?
They're doing really well. They've adjusted well. They're familiar with the home, so they're in routine already and they love it.
Are they both up to date on all their medical and dental?
They are.
And do they have any psychological needs or therapeutic needs?
They attend individual therapy, and Corbin was diagnosed with ADHD. He was recently taken off his ADHD medication, and he has a medication review every month, as a diagnosis was given too soon.
And does he have any school accommodations that need to be taken care of?
No, not at this time. We addressed it with the teachers and the counselor, and they're aware of it. They said they would just let us know if anything.
Turning our attention to the parents, how is the mother, Ms. Daniels, doing on her service plan?
Ms. Daniels has only done a hair follicle test at the beginning whenever she was released, and she tested positive for marijuana and methamphetamines. That was on January the 10th, and she completed one UA on January 30th, and that was negative. But her courtesy worker has not really been able to get a hold of her. She hasn't done her face-to-face last month, and she attempted to do one yesterday.
And have you been able to make contact with her?
She responds maybe once every 2 weeks. She's not very consistent on her part.
Has she engaged in any of her services other than those drug tests?
She completed her OSAR, but never scheduled a follow-up, so she will need to complete it again.
And so we're about halfway through our 1-year timeline for this case. Is that correct?
Correct.
And have you explained to Ms. Daniels that around this time, if parents don't engage, we start looking at alternative permanency plans?
Yes.
Okay, so you've made it clear to her that this is kind of the really important time when she needs to kind of redouble her efforts if she wants the children returned to her custody.
Yes.
Okay. And so since she's on this call and can hear you, what is the first thing you want her to get a jump start on? What is the number one thing she can engage in?
She needs to schedule another OSAR assessment.
Okay, so our number one concern is that substance abuse, which will be taken care of by the OSAR evaluation. So what the department is asking her to hear today is that's the number one thing to get a jump start on.
Yes.
How is the father doing on his service plan?
The father was just released on February the 24th. He was able to complete a UA and a hair follicle test. The UA came back negative. The hair follicle test was canceled due to the clinic mislabeling the specimen. So it was canceled. So I asked for him to retake the test on March 1st. And he stated that he was working and was out of town, so he did not take it.
Okay, can you send that request one more time and stress the importance of him complying with it?
Yes.
Now that he's out of jail, have you had talks with the placement about the importance of being protective and only having visitation through the department?
Yes. And we've scheduled one in person, and I supervise a visit.
How are those visits going?
That visit went well. The kids enjoyed him. They played with him. It was at a park, so they really enjoyed it.
And has the mother engaged in any visitation?
She did one in person, and the rest weekly have been virtual, which I supervise as well.
And how are those going?
They're going well. It's a little harder for the kids to stay engaged, but they play games and they enjoy seeing her as well.
Is there anything else that this court needs to know about how the case is going?
No, I think it's just, the communication needs to be a little bit better.
All right. So at this time, are we asking the court to continue the placement and find that neither parent is in compliance with their family plan of service?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'll pass the witness.
All right. Ms. Savage, do you have any questions for Ms. Hernandez?
Yes. Does the mother have a copy of her family plan of service?
She does.
Have all the referrals been sent out, and are those still active?
Yes, the referrals were sent out by her courtesy worker.
Okay. How do we get the mother's visitations increased? What services does she need to engage in so she can get more contact with her children?
She needs to, stay consistent with communication and the drug testing part, and to at least complete one service out of everything.
Are her services set up virtually?
I believe the courtesy worker said that she has tried to get most virtually, yes.
Okay. And will you continue working with the mother to encourage her getting involved in those services?
Yes.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right. Let me ask Ms. Janice, any questions from you?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Ramos attended the recent family group conference in this case, correct?
Correct.
Does he seem motivated to want to work services?
He did at first, and then he said he was working out of town, and that's where he kind of slipped off. He texted me today that he was sick, or he's been sick.
Okay. Has he made efforts to get the services set up that you know of?
He has not. I actually had a call today to get the psychological evaluation booked when I had asked him last week to do.
Okay. Did he tell you where specifically he's working?
He did not. He actually told me today that he was fired due to having to move out of his apartment.
Okay. All right. Thank you. No further questions.
All right, Ms. Acosta.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Hernandez, is Corbin receiving all of the services that he needs at school?
He is. Like I said, I spoke with the counselor and the teacher as well, and they are, monitoring his progress, and he's doing really well in school right now.
Good. Is he receiving any additional tutoring or anything extra that'll help him progress in his reading and his math?
The caregiver, Miss Carrie, Miss Tijerina, is very good with, doing after school tutoring with the kids. She sits them down at the table and helps them do their homework and extra reading and whatever she can do to help.
Okay. And you did mention that that Corbin was weaned off of his ADHD medicine, correct?
Correct.
And he has had no ill effects from that weaning off of the meds. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. He was very zombie-like, as he states, and he didn't like it.
Okay. And that was also in conjunction with an allergy medication that he was taking. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And the allergy medication is being taken only as needed now so that he's
as
not
needed.
lethargic.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And Caleb, the same thing with the allergy medicine. Is that correct?
Correct. Just as needed now.
And Caleb doesn't have any particular individualized needs at school at this time. Is that correct? He's doing quite well.
Yes, he's doing quite well. Straight A's and 1B.
Okay. Do you know what the plans are for summer? Is caregiver getting them set up in any summer programs, or if she needs to, will the department help her set those up?
Yes, so we actually spoke about this last parent-child visit. She does want to enroll them in a summer camp or some type of activity just so they're not at home. And yes, we are trying to work with her to get those services paid for.
Okay, thank you. With regard to visits, the department isn't requesting any change in visits at this time. Is that correct?
Correct. I think the 1 hour for each parent is enough at this time.
Okay, thank you. I'll pass the witness, Judge.
All right. Ms. Hernandez, where is Ms. Daniels living?
Ms. Daniels?
All right. So is she making it to visits from that distance to the visits that are scheduled?
She had one in-person parent-child visit. The rest have been virtually.
All right. And that works best given the distance?
It does. I told her that she can let me know anytime that she is available to drive down available.
All right. Okay. Any additional questions from any party for Ms. Hernandez? If not, any additional witnesses, Ms. Levi? No. All right. Any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Any other witnesses from any party?
No.
Okay. Ms. Acosta, do you have a report you'd like to share on behalf of the children?
Yes, Judge, I do. I'm pleased with the placement that they're in. I'm glad that they're with their grandmother. It's safe and stable, and they're bonded to her. I do know that they're bonded to their parents, and they do ask when they're going to be able to go home. But she's meeting all of their needs. It is good to hear that, she was listening when Corbin told her that he didn't feel like himself on the medication, and they were able to address that. I think that that's incredibly important for him to feel normal. And if the meds were not allowing him to do that, and if they're being monitored by a physician who's enabling that process, then I think that that's a good thing. He isn't as lethargic, he's not as tired, and he needs to be able to function as a child in school. So I think that that's beneficial. Caleb's doing incredibly well in school. He has all A's and 1B. They're looking into either doing soccer or football. And I do know that they're looking forward to doing some kind of summer program if it's possible. I do know that they do love their parents. And it is disappointing that neither parent seems to be in compliance, and there's no urgency to get either child back with them. So it's disappointing. These are two boys who are well aware that they're not with their parents, and that they're, they want to see their parents. And I think that both of these parents need to do what they need to do to try to get their kids back. And if they don't, then they are in a good placement. I also did speak with placement with Ms. Tijerina, and she is working on getting licensed. So I know that process is starting in the event that the parents don't know what they need to.
Well, thank you. I meant to ask that question myself, so thank you for covering that. And thank you all. Based on the testimony the court has heard today, the court does find that there would be a continuing danger to the physical health and safety of the children if they were returned home to either parent today. The court does find that continuation of their current placement with Ms. Tijerina is in their best interest, and that all of their physical, emotional, academic, and therapeutic needs are being met there presently, and that it's in their best interest to remain there. In addition, the court is going to find that neither parent at this time is in compliance with their court-ordered plan of service. And I would like to encourage Ms. Daniels here today for you to get involved to the extent that you're able to in your drug treatment. I think that was covered pretty extensively, that's the one area, if you can focus on, that will help us move forward. So I am going to order that Ms. Daniels submit to another OSAR evaluation and to follow through on the treatment and services that are recommended in that evaluation. You're capable of doing this, Ms. Daniels, and you have people here who are ready and willing to assist you in getting the help that you need, and that your children need you to access for your own well-being and theirs. So you have time, but it's going to get harder by the day if you don't get started right now. And I just want to emphasize that this is sort of a real turning point for you and the children. It's going to be very hard if you delay that treatment any longer. So Ms. Hernandez is willing to assist, and you have a courtesy worker in your area that can help. And I'm encouraging you to maintain better communication with them so that they can assist you. As we are all scheduled to be back for our next permanency review before final order on the 14th of June at 11 a.m. And I do have to admonish you, Ms. Daniels, that the state of Texas gives parents in your situation 1 year to show the court your ability to provide your children with a safe, stable, drug-free, and violence-free home. If you're unable to do that within that span of time, your rights are subject to being restricted like they are right now, or terminated, which means cut off altogether. Do you understand that, Ms. Daniels? All right, and that was a yes, so I'll record that for the record. And is there anything else that we need to address at this time? All right, well, if not, thank you all. All parties are excused. We're set today for a court-ordered services compliance hearing, and the court will recognize that the department is present this afternoon, represented by Ms. Leslie Levi and joined by Ms. Desiree Flores. In addition, we have with us Ms. Sonia Sims. Ms. Sims is the attorney for the respondent mother, Ms. Georgiana Galbraith. I believe that Ms. Galbraith is present. Ms. Anna Swallow is here, having been appointed to represent the respondent father, William Galbraith. I don't believe I see him here this afternoon, unless he's with Ms. Galbraith, and I can't see that. In addition, we have Ms. Irene Acosta here on behalf of Ms. Cecilia Hellrung, who is the attorney ad litem for the children in this case. So, so let me ask Ms. Levi, are you ready to proceed? Who would you like to call this afternoon for an update on the compliance of the parents with their court-ordered services?
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to call Mr. Duquette, but before we could do that, Mr. Pena was subpoenaed, I believe, because Ms. Swallow was requesting a video from the police department. We have attempted in good faith to get that video, but the copy we received was damaged. I believe they've made us another copy, so I just need to coordinate with Ms. Duquette or Ms. Flores to have someone swing by the police department and pick it up. But if there is no objection, I believe Deputy Pena can be excused from the hearing.
All right, Ms. Swallow, do you feel like you're able to obtain the information that you need on behalf of your client with Ms. Levi's assistance?
Yes, Judge, thank you.
Okay, well, Deputy Pena, thanks for joining us, but it looks like you can be released at this time. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, so, okay, is that Ms. Duquette? All right, Ms. Duquette, are you going to be the department's witness this afternoon?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay, can you adjust your video screen for my court reporter? It's easier for her if she can see your whole face. Yeah, that's great.
There
And if
we
you'll please,
go.
raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Ms. Levi, you may proceed.
Thank you. Ms. Duquette, what brought this case into family-based safety services?
Domestic violence incident between Mrs.
And-
Galbraith and Mr. Galbraith.
Can you give the court an update? Are the parents currently together, or where are we in that regard?
As far as I'm concerned, as of today, Mrs. Galbraith is living with her children at a hotel. That's the last address I've gotten. Mr. Galbraith is living alone. I don't have a physical address for him. The last address I have, I believe the investigations had it. He didn't know the physical address when we met up for the FSNA, but I know it's in an RV park. So I'm not quite sure about the physical address itself.
Now, family team meetings were held separately with each of the mother and the father. Is that correct?
Correct.
And at those meetings, were you able to discuss with each parent what the department is asking them to do and kind of discuss what's expected?
Yes.
So let's start with mom. How is mom doing on her service plan?
She's doing really great on her services. She's always been cooperative and has done what I asked her to do. I did have a hard time getting one consent regarding safer path, but that's been already addressed.
Okay, so at this time, would you say that mother is in compliance with her family planning service?
She is. We did kind of have an incident occur in my last visit regarding kids letting me know that dad was around, excuse me, and he was staying there. I addressed it separately with Mrs. Galbraith, but didn't go too well. So from that point on, I think that's my eye-opening on not being protective. But other than that, I mean, she was being very compliant.
Okay, and Mr. Galbraith has bond conditions that he's not to be in contact with the children. Is that correct?
It is now, we did find that out on Friday, so we are definitely gonna comply by it.
Okay, now Mr. Galbraith has a new attorney, and she has been facilitating our contact with her client. Is that fair to say?
Yes,
And through Ms. Swallow, he has represented to the department that he will not be violating any of the safety plans or the conditions of his bond.
correct.
Now, at the family team meeting, did we discuss how visitation can be set up moving forward?
Yes.
And what was the tentative plan that was come up with?
We were supposed to come up with a third-party visitation supervisor, which would be Children Matter, and move from there, since the children's attorney felt that the children were already traumatized enough with the department. So we weren't going to be supervisors as far as visitation for them and Mr. Galbraith. So we went about actually reaching out to Children Matter. We did the 2054, we made arrangements, and that's as far as it went. And they did schedule it for Saturday, but then had to take him off the roster due to that, the bond order that he has.
Okay, now when we talk about traumatizing for the children, would you agree with me that we're talking about a couple things? One is that communication between the department and the father has deteriorated, and getting a third party, an independent set of eyes on it, everyone agrees would be beneficial.
It would be beneficial. As far as communication between the department and father, there has been on my part, but now that Anna is involved, we've been able to actually review the family plan. So we're getting somewhere now.
Okay, and has the father started engaging with his services?
As far as I've called this a week, the only thing he's been doing is therapy. And that's, I believe he's done therapy twice, maybe 3, since I've talked to Shonda Esparza.
Okay, so at
That's
this
been
time,
inconsistent.
we would say that he is not in compliance with his family plan, but he appears to be starting to engage.
He's not in compliance, except for, yeah, with Shonda, therapist.
All right. And you mentioned that you have been able to go over that service plan with his attorney.
Yes,
So he is aware of what's being asked of him now.
of course, yes. And I've given him the services, the numbers and everything prior to having the attorney as well.
And
Yes.
when we address the unsupervised access with the mother or the unapproved access, did she seem to understand how important it is to make sure that those bond conditions and rules are followed?
As far as the family agreement plan, she did understand. We were supposed to have her on a safety plan, but she did not have anybody who could supervise or monitor. So we came up with the family agreement plan so that way her and her children can be together and live together until further notice. And I did make it, you know, she is aware of how important it was not to have father around with her and children. We just wanted to avoid another incident because another incident would mean removal.
And so this was, in fact, explained to mother.
Yes.
All right, thank you. I'll pass the witness.
Ms. Sims, questions for Ms. Duquette?
Yes, Ms. Duquette. Ms. Galbraith, you said that she does understand the importance of following the department's protective order as well as the guidelines, the conditions for release for the father, correct?
The family agreement plan.
I'm sorry?
The family agreement plan that we reviewed together? Yes.
Okay. And so she has expressed to you that it is her intention to not allow the father to have contact with the children, not only for how it would affect this case, but also that it is a condition of his bond release.
No one knew about the bond until Friday, so that's incorrect.
Have you spoken to her since Friday?
No, of course not.
So would you be surprised to know that she is committed to not violating the bond? She doesn't want to do anything to send dad to jail, and she does not want to do anything to violate her safety plan with the department.
I'm glad to hear that.
Does that surprise you?
No, not at all, because she's been cooperative, like I said in the beginning.
Great. What would you say is the next most important service that mom needs to focus on?
Mother?
Yes,
It just,
mom.
I mean, the service, I don't know what else to provide her. She's been doing everything she needs to, but I would recommend her being more protective of her kids and not saying things in front of them that will kind of make them not want to be honest.
Has family therapy been set up?
She is in therapy, and after they're done with their individual therapy, it's supposed to be group therapy.
Then she goes to group therapy, you said?
With Shonda Esparza and her kids.
Group therapy
and
to
father.
include who?
Everyone.
Okay,
If they're
so-
reunifying, if mom and dad are willing to reunify, that was our whole condition there. Each gets individual therapy, and from then we progress either to couples counseling or group therapy.
What about therapy for the children? Has that been set up?
Your client was supposed to set that up, but it has been set up with Shonda Esparza.
Okay. And so I know Ms. Gilbreth is looking into an alternate program at the request of the ad litem, correct?
Yes, that was the FGC we all were at.
Okay, and that's because the ad litem for the children believes that it would be more appropriate for the children to have an independent therapist if it can be arranged, correct?
Yes, correct.
But the department does not have anyone else available who can do individual therapy with the children other than Chandra Esparza. Is that correct?
As far as I know, I'm not rural. Again, I've stated this several times, but let me state it for the record. I'm only helping rural at the moment because they are shorthanded. So I am actually working out of Bexar County. So I do, right now I'm helping Wilson County and Atacosa whenever I can. But as far as I was told, as far as my supervisor, yes, we're having an issue with counselors for children at the moment.
Okay, so if Ms. Galbraith is not able to secure an alternate therapist to do individual therapy with the children, are you suggesting that she continues to take the children to see Mrs. Sparza?
I was under the impression they were still seeing Mrs. Sparza up until she found somebody else.
Okay. And does Ms. Esparza have any reports about her sessions with mom or the children?
She has shared with me that kids seem pretty open to therapy. I guess they only had one therapy session so far. Ms. Galbraith, you can correct me if I'm wrong. It's been, I think another Saturday has passed, so possibly two. But therapist, Mrs. Sparza did state that the kids are open to therapy. And also mom has admitted to domestic violence. So she's happy about that as well. And she is taking all her sessions in and is engaged. So she is happy with Ms. Galbraith's progress. And she's happy that the kids are pretty open to therapy. So that's as far as I know.
So you suggested that Ms. Galbraith needs to work on strengthening and demonstrating her protective capacity for her children.
Yes.
Do you intend for her to do this through her therapy sessions with Mrs. Sparza?
We can arrange that. I can make a call to Mrs. Sparza to address that a little bit more deeper, because we can always suggest things to the therapist as well.
Okay, that would be great. Is there anything else that you want Ms. Galbraith to be addressing with her therapist?
Maybe not to be calling her children liars in front of them is a start. I think that's very traumatizing. I feel like the kids are afraid to talk to anyone, even at school. So that may be a problem as well. Maybe we can address that with the kids, Ms. Galbraith as well.
But you trust that Ms. Esparza, as a licensed therapist, is able to address that and get to the bottom of that alleged situation?
With Ms. Galbraith, yes. Ms. Galbraith actually is in Safer Path, so they are the ones going over domestic violence issues and parenting as well. But I can have a talk with Mrs. Sparza to see if she can address this, and if she can't, we can come up with another service provider.
Okay. Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
All right, Ms. Swallow.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Duquette, isn't it true that we met, you and I and my client met a week ago to review his family plan?
Was it a week ago?
I'm asking you. Yeah, it
Well,
was.
I mean, I don't have my calendar open. I can't tell you if it was a week ago, but I know we did discuss it. I can't give you an exact date right now. I'm sorry.
It was last Tuesday. We did. And at that meeting, we went over his family plan, correct?
Yes, at the Zoom meeting we had together, we did go over his family plan.
And then we had the family group conference less than a week ago, just last Thursday. Is that correct?
Yes, we did have the family group conference.
So, and additionally, I was just recently appointed to represent him.
Oh, yes, that's correct.
And so in all fairness, I mean, your testimony is that he's not compliant, but in all fairness, he finally is in a position to have these meetings, have competent counsel, and communicate effectively with the department.
In all fairness, can I be honest here?
You're supposed to be.
Okay, well, let me tell you,
And I'm not asking you, Ms. Duquette, this is a yes or no question. This is not an invitation to cite a narrative.
Okay, repeat your question then.
In all fairness, your testimony was that, and I may not say it the exact same way, but I'll get to the gist of it. Your testimony was that my client is not in compliance. However, we just most recently, within the last week, have been able to meet with my client and him have counsel and go over the family plan of service. So do you think it's fair, yes or no, to classify him as not being compliant at this point?
Yes, because he's still not compliant after our meeting.
Okay, it's been less than a week though, yes or no?
Yes, of course.
Okay. And prior to that meeting, he was engaged in therapy, correct?
For one session, correct.
Okay. Your testimony was that he's seen her more than once. So
As of now, yes. But prior to our meeting, it was only one time.
okay. Are you sure your information is correct?
Let me double check my text from Ms. Shonda.
And my point, Ms. Duquette, is that prior to having a family group conference or a meeting to go over his family plan, he was already engaging in at least one service, yes or no?
Just one, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you asking the court today to modify the previous orders regarding the visitation?
I'm not, you are.
Ms. Duquette, was it not your testimony that it would be better for the children due to the turmoil with the department that these visits be, once his bond conditions are modified, that these visits be supervised by a third-party facilitator?
Yes, that's what we discussed on the FGC would be best by everyone, all the attorneys.
Okay, and that's just what you testified to as well, right?
Yes, we all agreed on that.
Okay, and so today, would it be beneficial if the court were to modify the orders that state the department is the only approved supervisor for these visits?
After the bond is done, yes, I agree. He has to, I believe supervision would be best with Children Matter.
Okay, and is the department in agreement to also include in that language that by Children Matters, a third-party facilitator such as Children Matters and or an approved individual that could supervise visits?
I would agree to this after a couple of visits with Children Matter. Yes, I would agree to this. As long as they can pass the background check and everything that we have, I would agree to this since he does have a busy work schedule as well and the kids go to school.
Okay. Okay, and do you feel confident that Mr. Galbraith has everything he needs to initiate all of his services at this point?
I gave him all the information, so yeah, he should have everything he needs.
Okay, and the family plan was returned to you, signed with permission, correct?
Can you rephrase that?
Have you received a signed copy of the family plan by Mr. Galbraith through me?
With your corrections?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
With your corrections. Yeah,
Yes.
but I didn't agree to those corrections.
Okay, but there is a family plan that he signed, right?
Correct.
Thank you. I pass the witness.
Ms. Acosta?
Is it fair to say that there's been a lot of friction between the mother and yourself?
Not in the beginning of the case and throughout the whole case. It was the last visit. Yes, the last visit is what did it.
Okay, and is she currently requesting that all communication go through her attorney?
I believe they both are at this point.
And the father was previously represented, correct?
Yes.
So prior to Ms. Swallow coming on, he did have an attorney that was representing him.
Yes, correct.
Was the department in contact with him through that attorney?
Not in the beginning. That was not ordered in the beginning. It wasn't requested by any of them to have contact with the attorney and them. They were both just engaging conversations with me without having their attorney present. They never mentioned they wanted an attorney.
But to your knowledge, he was aware of this case. Is that correct?
Mr. Galbraith or the attorney?
Mr. Galbraith.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And was the suspicion that the kids were having, that the dad was having unauthorized visits with the kids confirmed?
It was with the children and the way Mrs. Galbraith reacted.
Okay. And moving forward, any visits with the father need to be supervised, correct?
Once that's granted, once, the bond conditions are are adjusted or whatever needs to be modified, and we're given that order, then correct, it needs to be supervised.
Okay, is there anything that anything more that the children need at this time?
That counseling and just not to have any negative feedback in front of them from this point on.
All right, I'll pass the witness, Judge.
Right. Before we go any further, can I ask Ms. Galbraith for you to turn your video on? I need to, across the board, if we're going to continue via Zoom, I'd like all attorneys to address with their clients that you should be able, if you're going to participate in a video Zoom hearing, have your camera on and allow the court to see and evaluate that you're participating fully in the hearing. So thank you, Ms. Galbraith, for doing that. But I am, I think it's a basic expectation that all parties who participate will have their video on if they're using a video call. So
I thought it was on.
Okay, thank you. All right, let me ask if you have additional witnesses, Ms. Levi?
No, Your Honor, the state would rest.
Any additional witnesses? Ms. Sims,
No, Your Honor, no witnesses.
Ms. Swallow, or Ms. Acosta?
No witnesses, Judge, but I would like to address the court when appropriate.
All right, why don't you go ahead and do that now?
Thank you, Judge. I would request that my client not be held in compliant today. He had serious issues contacting his prior attorney. I don't know if he ever really spoke with her. And there is a lot of friction with the department, specifically Ms. Duquette. And I did request that all communication go through me, and I feel like that has really helped the situation. I don't think that's hindered or made it more difficult to communicate. I think it's made things better. And it is in fact true that, he just recently, within the last week, we had the family group and we had the meeting with Ms. Duquette. Additionally, he was not aware, I was not aware of his bond conditions until Friday. As soon as that became known, I emailed the department and Ms. Duquette's supervisor and everyone. And once those bond conditions are modified, I would request that the orders reflect that, his visits moving forward be supervised by third-party facilitators such as Children Matters, and or after a few of those visits, by an approved individual such as his mother. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Does anyone else need to address the court before I turn to Ms. Acosta?
Your Honor, I mean, we would ask that he not be found compliant. He's known about this case. He was admonished about it. He's had an attorney and he's been very abrasive. I believe they knew they were violating the visitation plan and they did it anyway. So I'm glad that Ms. Swallow is on. I agree that her participation has facilitated things, but he was aware of this court's orders and was not following them.
Thank you, Ms. Levi. Ms. Acosta, what do you have to report on behalf of the children?
Judge, Ms. Hellrung did give me a report. She said that mom's been somewhat compliant and that there has been friction between her and the caseworker. She said the FGC was supposed to have been in January, but it was just held on, I guess, last week. She did say that she has met with the kids, but they've been kind of guarded with her and haven't really wanted to speak with her freely, but they did agree that they do want to visit with their dad. And so she did say that as soon as possible, I would assume when the bond conditions are amended, that she would suggest that the children remain with the mother and that they begin weekly visits with the father as soon as they can get them scheduled with Children Matter. But that's what she's reported, Judge.
All right. Okay, well, based on the testimony the court has heard today, the court is going to find that Ms. Galbraith is in compliance with her court-ordered services, and that Mr. Galbraith is not in compliance with his court-ordered services. You've either done the services or you haven't. And right now, Mr. Galbraith has not. And he's a grown man. He may not have had the most effective counsel as Ms. Swallow on the case, but he should be able to communicate with his caseworker and to get set up with service providers and attend those appointments without being held as handheld by an attorney. I'm glad that we're making progress. But I've reread the affidavit for in support of this case. These are very serious allegations of domestic violence, and his conduct is an ongoing demonstration of those power dynamics that if we don't address this through services, it's going to be very difficult, Ms. Galbraith, for the department to walk away and feel like you're someone who can protect these children from further incidents of violence. If he doesn't make progress in services the way that you are, attending and hopefully benefiting from them. I will say that I will hope that this will mean a fresh start, and that there'll be a reset button of everyone involved. Frankly, Miss Duquette has discovered deception, and sometimes when that happens, you get defensive and you are, you don't want to accept responsibility for that. But that's what needs to happen for this process to work out. This is about keeping these kids safe so that they don't have to witness incidents of domestic violence between their parents. And when you do witness that, even if they're not hurt themselves, that is a very detrimental experience for children, because it teaches them inappropriate ideas about what's acceptable and how to treat people going forward, and to treat each other. I mean, it can definitely have an impact on their own relationships now and in the future. And and your children deserve better than that. So this process needs to continue. The court feels that additional services would benefit this family, and certainly Mr. Galbraith needs to make some significant progress going forward for this case to be resolved successfully. I, at this time, believe it would be appropriate, once the bond conditions are lifted, to get Children Matter involved in supervising the visitation that all parties have agreed to. I think that would be appropriate, and I support that at this time. The court wants to continue the case and come back to review everyone's progress on May the 10th at 1:30. Is this a case that already has the Rule 11 for all future hearings being via Zoom as well? I'm looking at it now.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, all right. So we'll continue then with that hearing via Zoom. And is there anything else that the court needs to address at this time?
Judge, what was that time again, Judge?
It was 1:30 in the afternoon on May the 10th.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. If there is nothing further, all parties are excused. We're set for a court-ordered services compliance hearing, and the court will recognize that the department is present today, represented by Ms. Leslie Levi. And it looks like we have Ms. Desiree Flores present, as well as Mr. David Bodeker. In addition, we have with us Ms. Lisa Voigt, and Ms. Voigt is the attorney for Mr. Kidd, Mr. Mark Kidd, who's present. I don't see Ms. Maria Garza on the call. Are you reaching out to her? Okay. Ms. Maria Garza is the attorney for the respondent mother, Pamela Kidd. Ms. Garza is not yet with us, but Ms. Kidd is present. Ms. Stacy January is here as the attorney for the children in this case. I think we have some additional individuals here, Ms. Pam McCloskey, and then Miss Michelle Tavani and with DePelchin. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your presence. We're working to get Miss Garza on the call while we're waiting. Okay. She's in the car and trying to pull over, so I expect her to get on board shortly. So much. All right. Before we get started, is there anything we need to address preliminarily or Miss January?
Yes, Judge. I did I just want to make sure if my client is, which is Karina Kidd, if she's present virtually, if we could know that. But I do have a motion on file, and I did notify all parties after conferring with my client. I believe my client Karina, I believe there's a clear conflict in my dual role at this time. And so I would be asking for an appointment of a guardian ad litem on her behalf. And I can explain that further if you'd like, but I did file that. I know it recently came to light after my communication with her on Monday, a virtual communication.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll address that. We'll address that momentarily, but I think we can go ahead and get updated on the status of the case.
Please state your name for the record.
David Bedeker.
And are you the FBSS worker for the Kidd family?
I am.
And just to refresh everyone's recollection, this case came in large part to help the child get services. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Can you give the court a brief update on the services for Karina?
Yes. So we had scheduled a psychological for Karina that occurred on February 13th. We received that report from Dr. Moran on February 20th with the recommendations for her to it had her psychological conditions as well as her special education designation for emotionally disturbed by handicapping. We attempted to set up an ARD with Floresville ISD. That did not occur. We were also working with Ms. McCloskey, who had helped get Karina into an RTC, and she was placed there last week by her mom.
So what services for Karina are still outstanding?
Karina in the RTC is going to be receiving individual counseling. They have also included in her counseling services family therapy with Mr. and Mrs. Kidd. She's going to be attending group counseling as well as the other services at the RTC that they provide.
And this is one of the pilot programs for the evidence-based services. Is that correct, this case?
That's correct.
What evidence-based service is being utilized here?
They're using the brief strategic family therapy model, utilizing DePelchin as the family therapist.
And has that begun that service?
Yes, it has. They should have had, let's make sure. I believe they've had 3 sessions so far.
And at this time, are the parents cooperating with everything that the department is asking of them?
Yes, both parents are very communicative with me. They will let me know of any concerns that are ongoing. Pam will reach out anytime that she has any questions or concerns regarding the kids. And she will provide me any updates as far as what's going on in the household.
At this time, are you just asking that the court continue the orders as they are currently in place and give Karina some more time to get set up at her RTC?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness.
All right. Let me ask Ms. Garza. I'll let the record reflect that Ms. Garza is here. Do you have any questions for Mr. Bedeker?
Just briefly, Your Honor. Thank you. Mr. Bedeker, with regards to Ms. Kidd, I believe you indicated that she is cooperating fully with the department. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is there anything else that she needs to do in order to continue working with the department?
Not at this time. I know that there might be some additional recommendations by the therapist for maybe other forms of counseling, maybe individual or things like that, but I have not had a chance to speak with them regarding any additional recommendations on that.
Okay. And Ms. Kidd has been in contact with you regularly?
Yes.
Okay. And aside from any future recommendations from any of the specialists or the professionals involved in this case, is there anything else that she needs to do?
Not at this time.
All right. Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Voigt, questions from you?
Yes, as to Mr. Kidd, is he engaged in services as ordered?
He is.
And are there any other services that he needs to comply with?
Not at this time, but if there is additional recommendations from the therapist, then we will obviously adhere to what those recommendations are.
Okay, and how often are they getting therapy?
The model is once a week.
Okay, and is that virtual?
That is in person at their residence.
Okay, in person, okay. And then what about visitation with Corinna? What kind of visitation does he have?
That has not been arranged. However, the RTC rules are that Corinna can have phone contact with her family on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays.
Does she initiate it or can they?
She initiates the contact with them.
Okay, but they don't have the opportunity to call her?
Not at this time.
Okay. And do you know if they are having contact?
They had last spoke with Corinna, I believe, either on Saturday or Sunday.
Okay. Do you have any other concerns that need to be addressed?
I do not.
Okay, I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right. Miss January, questions from you?
Yes, just a few, Judge. Now, are you aware that at this time, Corinna does not believe this placement is in her best interest?
She has voiced that concern. I had spoken with her yesterday, and I also informed her that we were going to get a caseworker to visit with her while she's in the RTC.
Okay. And at this time, are there any other least restrictive alternatives for her other than this RTC to get her the treatment she needs?
No, she is an intense level of care.
Okay. And what, if any, safety plan has been in place at the RTC that you know of that can help with her self-harming behaviors if she should have any?
Corinna is currently 1-to-1 at the RTC that she's at. That is to ensure that she doesn't have the self-harm behaviors or the runaway behaviors.
Okay. And do you believe at this time that plan, that safety plan is enough to ensure that she will not hurt herself?
Yes.
And do you know when the last time she actually hurt herself was?
When I had spoken with Corinna last week, she had identified to me that the prior week was the last time that she had self-harmed.
Okay. And so it's fair to say within the last 2 weeks, she's had self-harming behavior?
That's correct.
Okay. And what is being done to meet her psychiatric needs at the RTC? Does she have a psychiatrist there or?
She is going to be having a psychiatrist and therapist as well. And they have engaged her with her medication regimen.
Okay. And she recently had her psychological completed, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And will you ensure to follow ensure that all of the recommendations are followed in that psychological?
Yes.
Okay. And as far as schooling, are you aware that the RTC is recommending home-based K-12 schooling?
Yes, I did receive an email from the RTC regarding the concerns and from Ms. McCloskey. We agree with those concerns. However, when I visited with Mr. and Mrs. Kidd yesterday, I did express to them that it is pretty difficult in regards to her changing schools to get an art set up. I don't know what the recommendations from the judge will be in regards to getting her those services and then transitioning her into a more homeschooling environment, because the school that is around the RTC has a lot of issues there with drug use, which Corinna has a history of.
Okay, and are you aware that Corinna is adamant she wants to go to in-person school and not the K-12 program?
Yes.
Okay. Have you heard of an individual named Joshua that she wants contact with?
When I spoke with her yesterday, she did mention Joshua to me briefly. That is, I believe, a new boy or friend that she has made.
Okay. All right. That's all I have at this time, Judge. Thank you. Pass the witness.
Mr. Bedeker, this is a case that was a Family First pilot project, correct? And one designed for in-home services for the family. Does Corinna's placement at the RTC, I mean, does that jeopardize the continued provision of in-home services from the pilot project or not?
It's possible, Judge. I know that this is a newer model for all of us, so we're trying to work out all the kinks. I know that the family has agreed to continue, but with the primary child that it was focused on out of the home, and she's going to be gone possibly 6 to 9 months at the RTC, we're unsure.
Okay. All right. Okay. And so I guess, I mean, we can open this up in listening to the development since our last hearing, and obviously Miss January, you filed a motion regarding, a feeling of a conflict. I just want to remind everyone, this is a court-ordered services case. So I don't have the power to make any placement decisions for Corinna. This is a voluntary placement that's been made and by her parents who have that right and that ability to do that without the courts. My blessing is not necessary for that. And so the case has taken a turn in a way that I want to make sure everyone understands. I cannot do anything about a change of placement. So maybe I could turn it over to you, Miss January, to address that. It's obvious. It sounds like Corinna's not happy. She doesn't want to be there, but I can't do anything about it.
Yes, Judge, and I understand that there's not a conservatorship order, and I can say I've probably filed these, once in a handful of times. It's just what's in her best interest and what she's wanting right now are in such conflict. And, of course, I'm going to advocate her position, and I can, let the court know all of the other concerns. And then, of course, the parents can make the decision. I just at least wanted it, known that I feel like there is, a conflict in what she's wanting me to advocate for, and the best interest role are in conflict. So I don't mind staying on, and I understand there's not much we can do, and I can definitely talk to her about that. But the schooling as well is a big issue, and meeting with the facility and the RTC administrator. What's happened to children from the RTC at that school has been very alarming. And, but Corinna's adamant she wants to try. So, but I guess ultimately it's up to the parents and the model to decide what's best for her. But I think it would help her catch up in school as well, because she might be behind, and might help with her behaviors and, just settling in at the RTC. But she wanted me to tell you it's making her worse. and she just feels like she's not going to get better there. But so.
Okay. Well, I understand. Let me ask, does anyone else need to address the court at this time? Ms. Levi, you're obviously asking that the court continue the case and monitor how it progresses. Is that the request of the
Yes,
department
Your
at this
Honor.
time?
Yes, Your
Okay.
Honor.
All right. Well, it's clear to me that the parents, Mr. and Ms. Kidd, are in compliance with their plans of service and court orders, and I'm glad that the in-home family therapy has started, that this development with Karina is, you know, it's not the ideal arrangement for those in-home services if she's not going to be there. But it's obviously necessary for her her safety and well-being at this time. I think as far as the educational program, that it's, you know, I don't think she would be at an RTC unless her physical health and emotional well-being were such a significant issue. And if there is a school on site that allows her to participate in the program and stay, you know, up to speed academically, that's the best option for her at this time. And I don't believe that, at least for now, engaging with the local school, from what has been said here, would be a positive or a beneficial step for her either. Ms. January, I understand you feel conflicted, and I'm happy to make an appointment for a guardian ad litem, a separate, and we can figure out who's next on the list, Virginia, for that role. It's we're working on getting that name. But I'm honestly looking at the code too, trying to figure out if these court-ordered services case, that the appointments are meant to be for attorneys and guardians in that dual role anyway, because it's not a case involving termination of parental rights or custody. And as I see it, that's where guardians come into play, because they can speak to what's in the best interest of the child. So I'm happy to do it. I'm not really sure that the code is written in a way that envisions these kind of bifurcated appointments for attorneys in court-ordered services cases. And if anybody else reads that differently, you can let me know. But ever since I saw your email and your motion, I've been trying to think about it a little bit further, and I'm not sure. But if it'll make things easier for you, I'll appoint a guardian.
Well, and I can stay on and talk with her again, and I think it'll be okay like this.
Okay.
So
Oh, you
I'll
think
just,
so? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I'll meet with her again.
Well, then I'll wait on that at this time. And we'll continue the case, and I hope that she can get settled in to her new placement. We are going to be back for our next court-ordered services compliance hearing on May the 10th at 2:30 in the afternoon. And this also is a case subject to a Rule 11 agreement of the parties to continue via Zoom, correct? All right.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. All right. Well, then that will be a Zoom hearing on May the 10th at 2:30 in the afternoon. Is there anything else to address today? Okay, well, thank you all. If nothing is further, all parties are excused.